your living room is the factory. The product being manufactured is you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Deck, and you're watching Fayetteville Public Access Television.
Hi, with us today is Dotty Oliver. Dotty has just written a book called Mistress of the Misunderstood.
Yes, I have.
And this book is a collection of your writings from the Arkansas Free Press, or I guess there's Little Rock Free Press and Arkansas Free Press.
Yes, it was Little Rock Free Press for 12 years, and then you guys up in Fayetteville liked it so much, and after Governor Huckabee sued me, I became statewide and became the Arkansas Free Press.
Now, what's the meaning of the title, Mistress of the Misunderstood?
Well, you know, many years ago, we had a kickball association started in Little Rock, and they gave me a plaque at the end of the first season, and they labeled me the Mistress of the Misunderstood, and it stuck because it fit, because I write for people that don't fit the mainstream.
Right.
I write for people that are looking for an alternative, a real alternative view, you know, not the left or the right one, but one that makes sense to their lives. And I kind of captured the imagination of a lot of people with that.
Now, Free Press had a very large readership.
Yes, it did. 100,000.
Right, I mean, and it was all around the state, pretty much.
All around the state toward the end, yeah. Really strong in Hot Springs, Pine Bluff, Fayetteville,
right.
Little Rock.
Now, what's the history of the Free Press? I mean, where did it get its start?
Well, I actually had begun working at another alternative paper that was my predecessor, and it was Spectrum Weekly.
Right.
And I started as their sales manager, and over the years they trained me. And they sent me to conventions, and I got to hang out with all the alternative association people around the country. And I actually learned my craft by going to conventions and reading and being a sales manager.
Now,
that was the perfect place to learn.
Now, Spectrum's a lot like the Grapevine. People wonder what happened to Spectrum.
Right. Well, if you read my book, it's in there. But Spectrum's demise was the direct result of harassment by the fundamentalist, overreactive groups in Little Rock.
Right.
So they actually put. It's kind of funny when you look back on it now, because this is pre-internet days, but
Yeah.
they put 1-900 numbers in the back of their paper, and you would have thought that they had naked people having sex back there,
Yeah.
because the fundamentalists in Little Rock went berserko. And I've always thought that it was a smokescreen for something much bigger,
Yeah.
like a political story they wrote or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, that's how they use sex as a bad thing.
So were just people boycotting the Spectrum after that? Or?
Oh, they would call the advertisers and harass them.
Really?
Oh, yes. It was hideous. It was really hideous. It was a sad time for Little Rock, kind of like today. It seems like.
So advertisers were just dropping off the...
Well, yes, but Spectrum went after the wrong kind of advertisers.
Oh.
You know, and that's why when I started the Free Press, I knew in my head, I knew the underbelly of Little Rock.
Right.
The people that ran Spectrum were really from out of state.
Oh, okay.
And the editor was from Berkeley, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So, and he owns a newspaper out there now.
Yeah.
But the deal was that they didn't realize, and they didn't know the underbelly of Little Rock like I did, which was very, very liberal, and was really glad they had the 900 numbers. So I decided in my head when I started the Free Press to go for that market. And so I went for the adult sex toy shop advertisers and head shops. You know, I went for a whole different advertising market that they did.
Now, you had a lot of mainstream ads too, though.
Oh, sure I did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, where sex goes, a lot of people follow, actually. And so, you know, I got a lot of university ads from different universities, all kinds of things.
Medical
Concerts,
ads, too.
medical ads, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Why'd you write this book?
Well, I thought it was important. I thought it was important enough to preserve my history, and it's kind of my life, you know, and a lot of people seem to be interested in my life over the years. I had an interesting one, you know, from working for rock bands to Tanya Tucker to, oh gosh, I've been in the belly of the beast of politics even. So, you know, I've worked for a Secret Service man that protected Kennedy, you know, so.
There's a lot of honesty in your editorials and your columns over the years.
Oh, yes.
Do you think that's what appealed to a lot of people?
Oh, I know it is. I know it is. You know, it's kind of refreshing to have somebody say what they really mean, and And, you know, I didn't beat around the bush about anything, you know, and I used my humor. I have a sense of humor, and I think that that's real important in dealing with some of these serious subjects.
But you never really written anything before you started writing for
No,
Free Press, had you?
I never had. In fact, I was just the business manager of the Free Press for the first 6 years, basically.
Yeah.
You know, I was the publisher, never wrote a thing, and then I got married to a writer and let him start writing a lot of the paper. All of a sudden, I decided I didn't want to be married anymore.
Yeah.
Didn't really give much thought to the fact that I had all these holes in the paper the next issue.
Yeah.
So I had to scramble and write my first column,
Yeah.
which is, I talk about that a little bit in the book. But people loved it, and I was shocked because it was kind of scary, you know, because it was about living and dying and changes in your life.
Yeah.
And then I realized people want a personal angle, and they want to get to know you. So,
Yeah.
so, and that's where my adventure begins. And that's what a lot of the first of the history in the book's about, how I became brave enough to continue that column writing.
And it really, and your column does actually reflect your whole life to this whole period, and you talk about your life before this, too.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
In fact, if you kept up with my life at all, which some people did, like you wrote for me for a while, you'll know as you read my columns from the beginning to the end that different periods reflect the different stresses I was going through. You know, there were different times when I would harp more on the drug war, or harp more on, you know, politics or whatever. It's just whatever. A strange revelation came to me about a year ago after I was in a high-speed chase.
Right.
And I wrote a column about that, you know. I was almost killed one day in a high-speed chase on the freeway, you know. Like police were coming after a truck that was coming head-on to me.
Wow.
And I got home and I started thinking about the bigger picture of my life, and I realized that every big issue in this country happened to me personally. And it was real, it was a real light bulb kind of moment, you know, because that's what gave me the insight to be able to write about it. And I think the high-speed chases are a big issue.
Yeah.
Nobody else seems to think so, but I think so. I don't think people should die. And especially, I figured, they never really told me what this guy did. I figured they could have found him at home probably the next day, and me and all my people behind me could have lived, you know.
Especially, a lot of passersby seem to die in these high-speed chases.
Oh, they do. 2 weeks later in Little Rock, a guy my age died in a high-speed chase that was the pillar of the community.
Right.
And I thought, wow, the Free Press could have been dead right there on that spot, you know, and it's an issue. So I wrote a column about high-speed chases and stun guns, because that to me is also another issue that people aren't taking seriously, but they scare me, and people die from that.
People seem to think stun guns are a humane sort of weapon.
Oh, God, these people. Who are these people that think that?
Well,
only the people that are selling the stun guns, apparently.
People don't seem to think about these issues too much.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I struggled with the Free Press for 16 years, because I saw things as major issues that most mainstream media never even touched on, you know. We could go into what I think are the most important issues during my 16 years.
What were the most important issues?
Well, the drug war.
Right. You wrote a lot about this.
I wrote a lot about the drug war. I believe that it's a waste of money. I believe it's a waste of time. I think it's zapped so much creative energy and money from our creative class in this country that it needs to be looked at in that way, because look at New Orleans. This is what I tell people. Look at Katrina.
Right.
Look at the poverty. Well, the drug war started in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And it just sucked those neighborhoods dry. Everybody in those poor communities were probably spending more a month on courts and fines and the police system that they were spending on groceries and food for their kids, you know?
Right.
So, because that's what the drug war's
Especially,
done.
I mean, we're busy creating a permanent underclass in this country.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I have a column in there called The Rising Tide of the Criminal Class.
Right.
You know, and I just see it everywhere. And I thought that things would change with the meth epidemic because more white kids were getting caught up in it, including my own daughter.
Yeah.
And I thought that we would move forward faster now that white kids were getting caught up too, because we know that black youth have been, you know, whatever, you know. I just can't even talk about it without getting really emotional, because I really feel the black community has been shat upon too much in our society. But it's still moving slowly, you know.
And it's ironic because a lot of conservative rural communities are being hit by the meth problem, and it's the certain level of blindness out there. They still seem to think it's just an inner city problem.
Oh, I know. It's true. It's a sad thing, too. I mean, here I was trying to deal with my daughter's addiction, which is really hard for a parent, and then to have to get the police involved at some point in anybody's life is a nightmare, because then they zap all your energy and your money, you know. And that's
and it saps you emotionally.
Emotionally. And, you know, seriously, I did close down the Free Press last year, and I know you want to talk about that a little bit. And the reason, you know, the economy sucked, okay? Advertising dollars were dried up a little bit, but normally, under normal circumstances, I could have delivered the thing myself. I could have cut it down to 20 pages if I had to, and I probably could have kept it going. But emotionally, I was so drained from the drug war affecting my family that I didn't have the gumption anymore. You know, it's like it took my backbone there for a while, because emotionally I was devastated. She was a beautiful person, and she didn't need to go through what she went through. And, you know, the drug war is just hideous and on so many levels. Okay, one of my other issues, let's get on to another, the hemp, you know, which is part of it too, you know, which Oregon just legalized hemp. I'm real happy about that. But when I found out that all our cigarette papers were made with hemp from China, hemp paper from China, I got ballistic, you know. I just thought, wow, isn't that something? You know, here's this great cash crop, and we can't grow it in America. And I even wrote a column last year before the end, after my high-speed chase, about our freeway system being the perfect place to grow our fuel. You know, we could grow hemp in the middle of the freeways and on the sides, because we already have the road crews that manicure. So they could switch their jobs to tending to this hemp cultivation, and we could have free fuel. And, you know, people driving down the freeway would see where their fuel and energy is coming from. And it's the perfect crop for Arkansas, you know, with this bad dirt we have up in the Ozarks and everything. So. But anyway, that was another issue.
You touched on sexuality a lot, which is certainly taboo for a lot of writers. Remember, they won't go anywhere near it.
I know, and you know what? It's just such a part of my personality. I've just never thought of it as being weird or overly indulgent or whatever. You know, I'll go to Europe or Amsterdam, and it's just there, you know. But you know, it could have something to do with the fact that I did grow up in a hotel in Little Rock, and it did have a red light district in the back. And some of my closest friends, when I was a child, wore nightgowns all day long and had a different kind of life, and it was real interesting to me. And I didn't know what it was when I was a kid, you know. It took me many years. But I think just growing up around people that had a strong sexuality and expressed it, I guess that's what it was. But you know, if we were in Europe and I was writing, that wouldn't even come up, you know, just, but I don't think of it as weird. I'm just over.
There's a kind of moral dishonesty in this country.
Oh, no
about
kidding. And that's
sexuality.
There's a lot of dishonesty in this country about a lot of things, you know, drug abuse, sexual abuse, all kinds of things.
But even a lot of alternative newspapers, the subject of sex, when it's treated you have a special issue about sex. It's not treated on a regular basis.
It's true. Well, you know, I had escort ads in the back of the Free Press, and because of that, I dealt with a lot of other women's sexuality, because when they came in to buy their ads, they always had stories to tell and things that I would never have printed. I'm no tabloid, but it's just real interesting to me. It's a lot more fun to hear some of their stories, some of these political stories I was getting at the time, and a lot of them involve politics, which, you know. So
would make good stories.
Oh, yes, they would. In fact, my second book, we'll probably have more of those stories in there. So.
And you dealt with a lot of interesting creative people over the years.
Oh, yes, I did. I think some of the best, you know. The Free Press attracted good writers, and it attracted free thinkers. And so, you know, I just had a real good eye for picking the right people, I think, too. I think that was a real important part of the Free Press. And my journey is knowing a good writer when I met one, you know. So, and I just... people wanted to write for me. You wanted to write for me. There's people here at your station that wrote for me. That's what kept the Free Press interesting, too, in my mind, that I always had freelancers. Because a staff would have just, you know how staffs do after a while. You know, there's no more creative juices going there. In fact, that could bring us to a point of journalism, the future of journalism. You know, I've got a few ideas on that.
Okay, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
I know. So, what's been the reaction of readers to your book so far? You call it bathroom humor, I think.
Well, that was my own.
Yeah.
I wanted people to feel comfortable saying it. That's why I threw it out there first,
Yeah.
okay? Because seriously, my columns weren't ever written to read from front to back like that,
Right.
I don't think. And you said you enjoyed it, so maybe it is a good way to read it. But I figured you just put it next to your toilet, you know, when you need to read something that takes a couple of minutes, just read one of my columns that flip through. I did do an index, so you
I
can.
think that's where people read most small newspapers is in the bathroom.
That's right.
Because they're short columns,
That's
short
actually
stories.
right. That's actually right. And so I think I threw that out there because I want people to feel comfortable with that. I actually had people go, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible that people think that about your book." But I know a lot of people that sold a lot of books as bathroom humor, like the Church of the Subgenius. You know, how, the father of my children is one of the writers for that, and they made money with bathroom humor, and I thought I could too. That's not what my columns really are very serious.
Yeah.
You know, about love, about hurt, pain. I just try to do it with a more, you know, oh my gosh, you know, we got to laugh at this stuff. It's so absurd.
It's also a reflection of the history of Arkansas too over the last 16 years.
Yes, oh, definitely, definitely. In fact, you know, I went through 2 governors. Well, actually, I started writing when Clinton was running for president. So I had to deal with the BBC sometimes. They'd be calling looking for dirt on him, you know, so that was a fun position to be in. And there is a cartoon in the book that I'm really proud I found and put in there about Susan McDougal.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things when that whole episode happened, the Ken Starr episode, was I did a fake escort ad and put it in the back of the Free Press and ran it for about a year. And I had Susan McDougal in chains, and I said, "Republicans like their women in chains." And I got a lot of mileage out of that. People loved it. And, you know, that I could do something with a cover or with just one piece of art that a lot of people could never do with a book, you know. One of my covers dealt with Governor Huckabee at the time's covenant marriage issue, you know. Oh, Lord, you know, I was so fed up and all, you know, I feared the Free Press had a lot of single people that read us too, and single people are outnumbering married people in a lot of states. So, you know, I just thought it was just a joke. I mean, covenant marriage, please, you know. I mean, your husband's beating you and you have to go through some kind of.
Didn't he have a huge covenant marriage ceremony in a football field or something?
10,000 people showed up. 10,000 people showed up, and he renewed his vows. Well, great, you know, but he was our governor. He shouldn't have been doing that as far as I was concerned. And I did the Zombie Bride issue, which is, that cover is in the book, which I put my favorite covers in the book if I could find the original art. So.
You also, was Huckabee your favorite or least favorite governor? I mean, you certainly have this relationship with Huckabee. And when we say relationship, I mean, you as a publisher, you have this relationship with Huckabee that's pretty well known.
I covered him quite a bit. Yeah, if you look at my index, there's a lot of pages relating to him. To tell you the truth, I'll be fair, because, you know, I'm not left-wing or right-wing. He did some good things for us economically. He did struggle with the Our Kids First, which I was proud that he stuck with it. I did respect his wife for running against what I consider the drunk old white men cabal that runs Arkansas, you know. And so I had some respect for that. And but he didn't know when to leave religion out of the public arena.
He still doesn't.
He still doesn't. And he banned alcohol. A lot of people may not know this, but he banned alcohol in the state capitol. We were planning a big banquet for the Hot Springs Film Festival, and we'd always had wine at these banquets, and people paid a lot of money to come drink wine at these banquets. And at the last minute, we're told that he no longer allows wine to be served. And, you know, just silly things like that. It's silly. I mean, please, this isn't the Taliban, you know. And to me, that's what the Taliban's all about. It's trying to put their morality on you. So, you know.
The Free Press was sued by the governor.
Oh, yes. I'm proud of that, sort of.
And you did this wonderful cover, which unfortunately I don't have a copy of the issue, but you had to apologize to the governor.
Oh, I did. Yes, it was a very traumatic time, and I wrote a short story, an original short story that's in the book about it. It was very traumatic for me because, you know, I'd been doing the paper for, at that point, 7 years without a lawsuit. And naturally, I don't have insurance to protect me from those kind of things. That's kind of Yeah, everybody thought I would have some kind of insurance.
Right.
No, you don't do that. But I had a lot of people donate money. But what had happened was, you know, through the rumor mill, you hear things, and it got carried away. You know, his son was getting in a lot of trouble at that point with the dog killing spree or whatever. You know,
Right.
there's the Dallas Morning News did a front page story on his son killing a dog in front of a Boy Scout troop, and he
Right.
didn't sue them,
Right.
but he sued me for one line where I implied
Right.
that his son was caught with contraband in high school and treated differently than the other students.
Right.
And that was the whole gist of it, was that he was treated differently.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give the contraband a bad name, so
Yeah.
I never really,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't pursue it more than that one line.
Right.
And then he comes along and sues me, saying I ruined both his sons' reputations. And what happened, as in most lawsuits, I became very popular statewide.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he did a lot for me. It stressed me out because I don't like lawyers and I don't like lawsuits,
Right.
you know. I'm nervous in that kind of atmosphere. It's not my culture. I'm a peace and love, you know, kind of person. But so it was a traumatic time. But, you know, we settled the lawsuit, and there's some, the ending's kind of a gonzo ending, and I'm not going to tell. It's in the book. But there were a lot of depositions and a lot of he said, she said.
That's kind of a humorous piece you wrote. You know?
Yeah, it is.
Since I've been a bad girl.
Well, he actually had a sense of humor, I found out, because when I did my first cover after he sued me, I did a tabloid cover, one of my first. One I ended up doing many after that, but it showed him. Well, it showed his wife running off with alien snake people. It was just real funny. And his lawyer told me he laughed when he saw it. So I thought, well, that's cool. He's got a sense of humor. So when I did have to apologize, I kept that in mind. And at the time, The Simpsons was kind of new and fresh. And 10 years ago, people were laughing at it. And I loved when he wrote on the board, Bart would say, you know, one thing over and over and over again a million times. So I wrote, I've been a very bad girl, over and over again.
Yeah.
But I did bury a secret message in there, which a lot of people didn't get, but I did highlight it in the book.
Yeah.
So if you get the book, you'll see what my secret message was.
Well, Huckabee obviously did some good things, but he also referred to Arkansas as what, Banana Republic?
Banana Republic,
I know.
I know it. Well, that was my job to say that.
Yeah.
You know, he was infringing on my right to make fun of Arkansas. But he got a lot of flack for that. And, you know, I've got to say, there are some things about Arkansas that would remind me of a banana republic. You know, we have very few people that run this state, and I think he's more of an individual than most of the politicians we've had.
What do you think his chances are for president in 2012?
None. Not as long as he's got this Baptist.
Do you think he'll run again?
Yes. Oh, yes. He has nothing else to do.
Huckabee Palin.
Boy, wouldn't that be sad? That'd be really sad. But you know what? So I can't say I don't like the guy, but because I've actually watched his show some, and it's entertaining to a point. But he really gets hung up on that dumb religious stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he really does. And you know, in this day and age, you just can't do that. But he's had Bill Maher on his show, you know, and they call him crazy, and he just lets like water off a duck's back, you know. And
at least he's not as bad as Glenn Beck.
Oh my God!
It would be hard to be as
well,
bad
the deal is, Glenn Beck's a dry drunk. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt in my mind.
Right.
And if you know what that term means,
Yeah.
you know, I've been around that my whole life. You know, and when he falls apart and starts crying about silly things, I just laugh my ass
I
off.
know.
You know, it's
it's pretty incredible. You know?
Oh, it's more entertaining than most, that's for sure. But gosh, to think that anybody would believe anything the guy says.
I know.
I mean, I love it when they're getting on to another subject, but when they're trying to demonize Acorn, I gotta say, I was there when they started Acorn.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Wade Rathke back in the day, in the 70s. I was there in their living room. I was friends with their attorneys. It was just a small group of people really wanting to help the underprivileged of this country.
And Acorn has just been demonized horribly.
Oh my gosh, because they can't find anything else, and it's just really, it's kind of a sad reflection on the Republican Party right now,
And you read the letters to the editor in the Democrat Gazette.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like all these. It's every other letter is this, and people don't know anything about Acorn. They just know it's black people.
No, it's just black people.
Black people.
I know
Black
it.
people.
Well, you know, it's sad. I even gave them money this month. I've never given them money because I thought, well, they didn't need my money. But you know what? If they've got the right up, you know, panties in a wad that bad, then they deserve my money at this point.
Now,
So.
you got other books in mind besides this one, don't you?
Yes, I do. I have part 2 to that one. I had actually written way too much for this one, so I decided to split it up. And it'd be more of my biography, which is pretty interesting. I worked for some pretty fun stuff in Arkansas. I worked for Black Oak, Arkansas in the 70s, lived in a commune with them. I lived in a commune with them on Greers Ferry Lake that got attacked by John Birchers and
Really?
shot at. Yes.
What was that like?
Well, it was really frightening, you know, but at a young age, I learned how scary those people were. So it led me to have a cautious life, you know, but an informed life.
Yeah.
You know, I always looked at the underbelly of things. Greers Ferry had a terrible underbelly. Black people couldn't live there. At that point, one black person moved in with a trailer and they turned their trailer over.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. And we had a commune that actually put out a newspaper called
Really?
The Sun in Heber Springs. And we actually were effective in changing the vote in the county, and that's why we were terrorized. So, you know, you just don't try to change the vote in Arkansas. You know, if you'll remember Marlon Hawkins back in Conway, when he died, they found all those boxes of votes in his attic, I believe. And he was a Democrat, so, you know, you can't trust any of them. That's one thing, I'm an equal opportunity skeptic. That's what I tell people.
What was it like to work with Tanya Tucker?
Oh,
And how long ago was that?
Wow, that was a long time ago. She was 15 when I started working for her, and I actually organized her 16th birthday party in the little park that we have next to the zoo in Little Rock, and we flew in all kinds of dignitaries for that party, including the Rolling Stones manager, and we had a great time. But it was another one of those real political eye-openers for me because, you know, I saw things that a lot of people wouldn't believe if I told them, you know, payola going to people to change bills on writers' royalties, things like that. I saw some stuff that made me ill. And that's when I decided to drop out and be heavy for a while. So I thought, I've got that education now behind me. I think that's one reason I was real successful with the Free Press and keeping it fair and balanced is what I like to say, because I saw a lot of stuff in my life, you know, on the side of the sex, the politics. I've seen it all, you know. When my brother was young and we lived in a small town, Arkansas, we pretty much got run out of town because my brother kept getting in trouble with the law, you know. And it was petty stuff, breaking into churches, you know, things like that. But
How'd you come to grow up in a hotel?
well, in the 40s, my parents lived in this hotel, and they went back to McGee, had me, a few more kids. I was the 4th child. I had 3 older brothers.
Right.
And when we moved back to Little Rock, when I was 5, in 1954, my dad went to work for the hotel. And back in those days, hotels hired their own cab drivers because the cab drivers would bring the fares there. And actually, you know, if you really want to be honest, what the cab drivers were doing were bringing people to the red light district in the back, you know, because they didn't really need to bring people there for much else because the hotel was in front of the train station.
Oh, okay.
So there was this constant flow of people.
Yeah.
And it was fabulous. You know, I had this grand lobby that I got to hang out in, and my mother was so busy with 6 kids that I was pretty much raised by black porters in the hotel. And I helped them. I sweep the sidewalks, and, you know, we just had a good rapport. And I learned to respect black people. The hotel was owned by Greeks. I learned to respect a lot of cultures. And eventually my dad became the restaurant manager.
Yeah.
So we lived there a long time.
Yeah.
It was
Do you
fascinating.
remember Frank White?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. He was a doofus, wasn't he?
Yeah. Do you remember?
Hi, I'm Frank White.
Remember his wife said that Jesus would approve of nuclear weapons?
Oh, I remember so many hideous things about that episode. I just heard a story the other day that I'd never heard before. It's not in my book or anything, but I just heard that Stevens got mad at Clinton and wanted to show him that he could put somebody else in power for a while. And they asked around the office one day who wanted to be governor, and Frank White's DeSantis.
I can believe that. I can believe that.
Well, you know what? With what I've seen, I believe it. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to get sued here or anything, but that's the way politics are, you know. And I've seen it. I know. So, hey, I have a different take on things, but apparently my take kind of resonated with a lot of people because the free press was becoming wildly popular. You know, I'm just sorry that the system zapped all my energy for keeping it afloat.
What about issues? What about issues facing people now? What do you think are the most important issues facing people now?
Well,
that people really aren't paying attention to.
Well, some of the issues I brought up are important issues, but I think the whole issue of poverty. I mean, I read a statistic where 50% of the black men in this country don't have a job. If that doesn't scare you to death, you're not paying attention.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not sure that giving them jobs is, I have this idea, okay, this may be a little too far out there, and I haven't really thought it through totally.
Yeah.
But I think the future of work should be discussed. I think that we all some people work way too much. And we need to, I tell everybody I know, if you don't have to work now, if you have enough money in the bank, just quit your job.
Yeah.
Let some of these other people have a job. You know, I mean, it's fair. And maybe we need to be going to a 20-hour work week so that everybody can have a job.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be less and less jobs in the future. And I think that's what Obama and every politician is unwilling to talk about.
I know.
Because that might crash their whole college programs, you know.
Yeah.
But the deal is that there will be less work. We've got computers doing more of it, you know. And right now we have cops crawling all over each other with not much to do other than harass us, you know. First thing Obama did was give them more money, you know, to hire more, you know. They're falling all over each other in Little Rock and Fayetteville.
People aren't working 40-hour weeks.
Well, they shouldn't be.
Fewer and fewer people are working 40-hour weeks.
Well, you know, they shouldn't be, but we shouldn't be starving because we're working 20 hours. That's the whole issue.
Yeah.
You know, and I just joined this group. I want to tell you a little bit about it. Okay. I don't know a lot about it, so I don't want to be foolish or anything, but the Venus Project. It's an excellent project, and I just got on the website and studied it for hours last week, because what it's talking about is let's get beyond politicians running our country and let's let scientists run it for a while. I mean, let's take the money out of it right now, because we've got a lot of people with a lot of pent-up energy, and why should we not have solar cities with 50% of the people unemployed in some of them? You know, why shouldn't they be working? We need to take some money out of the equation somehow or another.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
It's an interesting idea, but you know, we got a lot of people sitting around with not enough to do.
You watch this stuff like on the Discovery Channel, the Science Channel, and you see things that are taking place in Europe, the innovations.
Right, all the cities that float up and down with the sea. Right. Is that not awesome?
Yeah, and we used to be innovative in this country.
I know, but the dollar stopped all that. The greed.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's like the intellectual fundamentalism.
Right. Oh my gosh, yes.
And we're entering into a period of intellectual barbarism in this country.
Boy, I see it too.
Yeah.
I see it too. To tell you the truth, I was kind of glad I closed down the Free Press last year, and I tell you why. Because people were so bowled over by Obama that they weren't listening to the message. Yeah. And it scared me. I actually was scared for the first time in my life. And I mean, I like Obama, and I'm glad he got elected. It said something important about us. Yeah. But he's not a peace president.
No.
I mean, the peace movement just rolled over and played dead after he got elected. But man, we can't afford Afghanistan.
No,
and you know, people don't look at the message. They just get the cult of personality. That's what they call it.
I was watching Bill Maher one night, and someone said the best way to help Afghanistan is to get all the women and children out until all the men have died, and then put them all back in. You know.
Now that's an interesting idea.
That's the best way to help Afghanistan.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. But you know, Afghanistan bankrupted Russia, so I don't know how in the world we think we can do any better. And bless their hearts. You know, I'm thankful for things every day.
Yeah.
But I'm always thankful that I'm not sitting on a oil field or a gold mine or something.
Yeah.
Because if you're sitting on a resource that people think they need, they'll go to any extreme to get it. You know, and we all know Afghanistan's a pipeline route. You know, it has nothing to do with anything but drugs and oil. You know.
I know. It's like Afghanistan, and more and more people, more and more Americans are dying there. You know, there are more contract soldiers over there in Afghanistan. There are American troops.
That's frightening.
And they're out of control.
I know people need. people need to watch The Terminator and really pay attention because, you know, right now they're praising all this drone technology and it scares the bejesus out of me because it's not anything we can control.
I know. And you know, when you have contract soldiers, it's like their loyalty is to whoever signs their paycheck.
And when you've got drones that kill people and nobody has to look you in the eyes, they're killing you. I think that's a scary proposition.
Or when NATO can
if somebody's going to kill me, I'd rather them see the look on my face, you know. I think it's the only humane thing, you know.
Or when NATO can kill 90 innocent people in a fell swoop.
Oh, it's sad. It's sad times, and really, truly, I say it's sad times, but at the same time, you know, I'm a very positive person.
Do you think that in other countries they pay more attention to issues than we do here?
Yes, most definitely. I was going to say the countries I go to, yes, but I think most of them, because most of them it's a life or death situation for them. You know, we're so complacent here because it's not. You know, we don't have bombs flying over our head all the time, but you know, most of Europe's been devastated. You know, that's something we haven't experienced yet, and I think we might. But you know, I hope not. I'm not. Ooh, I hope not. I hope these fanatics, you know, realize that they're feeding the wrong fire. You know, we need to be going in a totally different direction. But you know, bless Obama's heart, I wouldn't want to be him for anything. You know, he's got the racists after him. He's got, you know, where'd our America go? Those people crack me up. It's like, what?
Waving their birth certificates in the air. And,
I know, man. I don't care if he came from Mars. If he can get us what we need, which is, we have to have health care. You know, I had this debate with somebody on Facebook the other day. You were asking me how important Facebook is to me. Facebook's important to me because I have conversations with strangers that I wouldn't normally have a conversation with. And one of them was, I think women are more affected by the lack of health care than men. I'm sorry. I had a child that didn't get coverage. I had coverage, but she wasn't covered. They threw her in the intensive care, charged me way too much money for a week. For 7 years, I'm struggling with that. When I should be raising my kids and having a wonderful time, I'm stressed about money. They even came and repossessed my van. You know, I mean, what kind of life is that? You know, when my kids need me the most, I was the most stressed out over money. And then my 22-year-old daughter just fell off a roof here in Fayetteville, actually, down on Dixon Street. She had insurance, but it still devastated her. And then her appendix burst a month later. Oh, man. And I mean, she finally had to file bankruptcy. It's really a sad thing because she'd always tried to keep her credit perfect, and she saw what my struggles were after she was born. I mean, she knew.
You know, instead of town hall meetings, these healthcare debates should be taking place in emergency rooms and outside bankruptcy courts.
Boy, that's the truth. Most bankruptcy is because of healthcare. And you know, like as in my daughter's case, in my case, we didn't have credit card debt.
I know.
We don't have credit card debt.
If Mike Ross and Blanche Lambert Lincoln, who take oodles and gobs of money from the healthcare industry, if they really want to have a debate, if they should stand outside a bankruptcy court.
Isn't that true?
And have these debates.
I know. It devastated my daughter to have to file bankruptcy, but she's a wage slave, you know. What can she do?
I know.
You know, she got $30,000 in hospital bills just like that. And you know, she's 22. And you know, I told the guy on the Facebook, I said, she's not going to be able to amass any wealth for the next 5 years at least.
I know.
And he didn't understand that. He said, oh, she can amass wealth. And I said, no, you can't, because you can't get credit.
No.
And if you can't get credit, and that's why the free press was always started on a shoestring. I couldn't get credit because I had these little babies. I had just filed bankruptcy to get my van back, you know, so I'd have a way to get them to school.
Well, you ran the Ozark Gazette. You're always like, you know, you got $3 ahead all the time. You know?
Right. So, you know, she can't amass wealth, and I don't care what they say.
And you've got this god-awful payment she's making every month.
Huge, you know. And so...
And she's got to make it. If she misses a payment or two, man, it's like it starts from scratch again.
I know it. And the lawyer fee was $1,000. I didn't realize it's that expensive, you know. So, I mean, most people can't even get that. So I don't know, if you can't even afford to file bankruptcy, what the heck do you do, you know?
It's god-awful.
So, so the healthcare thing, you know, and I honestly have a lot of libertarian tendencies, but the whole healthcare industry is so overbloated right now. It's going to take some incredible thinking to get our way out of this. And right now, I don't see anything but yelling and screaming. But, you know, I mean, my personal experience, I've seen alcoholics on the streets of Little Rock. That when they drank too much, they get thrown in these wards where it costs the taxpayer like $14,000
Right.
for a week for them to dry out, and then they go right back to the streets drinking.
Absolutely.
So see, I see that as what we got to figure out, you know. But for some reason, we can't talk about those things.
No, we shove it aside.
And you know, to me, that the fact that this drunk on the street can get his free
Yeah.
sobriety, and my daughter had to file bankruptcy, who's worked her whole entire life since she was 15 years old.
No, it's just sort of insane.
It is. It's insane, you know.
Yeah.
And she tries hard, and you know, alcoholism is another one of those drug problems, you know, like the meth or whatever. And surely we can come up with a cure for it. Or what happened to antabuse? You know, I had friends that did antabuse, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
What happened to that? You know.
I don't know. I mean, it's,
You know what that is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You drink and you get sick as a dog. You know, and that. Let's do it.
It's
it was
just-
cheap.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's not around anymore.
Yeah,
It was cheap.
yeah, it's cheap.
Yeah.
But you spent a lot of time on Facebook, online, and these things weren't available to people years ago.
No, in fact, that's part of the demise of newspapers. You know, there's so many other ways to communicate now, and to get your message out there for your business and on and on. But I love Facebook. I love MySpace. I'm on all of them.
MySpace isn't quite as popular as Facebook, is it? It took me years to get on MySpace, and then when I got on MySpace, people were making fun of me.
Facebook jumped in
People were
there.
making fun of me. When I got on MySpace, it was like, hey, I'm on MySpace now. It was like going to a bunch of mathematicians and saying, hey, look, I just figured out how to use an abacus, you know?
Right. Well, you know what I say? I say MySpace is for my rock and roll side,
Right.
okay? I've got my rock videos on there that I film around Little Rock or whatever, and I keep up my rock bands on
Right.
there, and it's flashier, and it's for that wild side of me. But Facebook came along, and it's for that more, I want to make a friend, or I want to, you know, have a reunion,
Yeah.
or we just had a fantastic reunion of the SOB employees because of Facebook.
Wow.
200-something people showed up.
It's interesting. It is really possible to reconnect with people.
Oh, I love
from the
it.
past.
Oh, my
It's
God. I'm
pretty
emailing
amazing.
people that I
Yeah.
went to junior high with, you
Yeah.
know, and we haven't changed much,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
except
Yeah.
some of them became Republicans.
No,
so.
that's pretty. Actually, I had a junior high. My social studies teacher in junior high in Germany. She said, you know, when you're all in your 40s, a lot of you will be conservative. We said no, and I think there's like one or two people in the class who were still liberal, and the others, I don't know what happened to them. It was like invasion of the body snatchers. They became Republican.
Well, you know what I say? People who have no money are a little bit more liberal than people that have a lot of money.
probably true.
because
That's probably
they're
true.
so afraid that we might want to take it away
Yeah.
from them in some way, you know. But heck, you know, I wrote a column about that one time. How many zeros do you need beside your
Yeah.
name? You know.
Now, you promote your book too on
Yes, I
online
do.
too. You've been selling your book online.
Yes, I have. I have a website where you can do that and go read about it, and it will be better and better as the days go by. But I think these networking tools are good for that. And I do one that most people probably never thought about, but I do a dating website. It's called OkCupid, and it's free, and I can reach my targeted market, you know, and if people want to date me, or I would say go read my book first.
So you're single. So you're single. I can't tell my wife, yeah, I'm going to go on this dating website to promote my books. You know?
Well,
can't do
yeah,
that.
and you know what? I did. I've been seeing somebody a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel really funny about still going on OkCupid every day because I actually met him on there.
Really?
Yeah, actually, and but you know what? I've met some of my best friends on there, and I met a scientist out of Memphis on there, and we're forming this really good friendship. And he told me I was a social engineer, and that made me really
That's pretty
happy.
cool.
I like that because
Yeah.
I was trying to get him interested in the Venus Project because they need scientists.
I need to look. I need to check out the Venus Project.
Oh, man, it's cities of the future. It's fabulous.
I should go on Facebook. Actually, I promote my. I got stuff on YouTube. I promote that on Facebook. I guess I should promote my books on Facebook. Getting to the future of journalism, especially alternative media. Because alternative media, it seems like there's a difference between mainstream media and alternative media. Mainstream media is sort of like. It's dry anyway, and mainstream media is also a lot of. There's always a problem in mainstream media, and a lot of people don't recognize this. Is that a lot of times it's younger and younger reporters because a lot of older reporters are kind of shoved out, and so there's no what you call institutional memory of a community, and so you get this very shallow, basic reporting, and so it's like you do a story about a person or institution and there's no background in a story, so there's a lot of stuff missing from a story. It seems to me a lot of in-depth reporting now is in the alternative media.
It used to be.
Yeah,
It used to be. I think it's frighteningly disappearing. You know, at a fast rate, it's disappearing. But you know, Little Rock has what they consider 2 weekly newspapers, and I'm not sure you could consider either one of them alternative.
I've seen them both. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to disparage anybody.
Well,
who does an
no.
alternative paper,
I'm
but
glad they're still in business.
I think they're both-
I'm so excited that they
they're both
both.
crap.
Yeah.
I
Well, I was trying to be nice. I was trying to be nice.
I don't want to say anything bad about them, but I think they're both crap.
Well, see, I didn't want to say that.
It's
but
easy to do a crap alternative newspaper.
Yes, it is
but
easy.
And it takes some, but it's just as easy to do a quality alternative
Yes, it
newspaper.
is. And you know what? You just have to have bigger balls. That's what people
Yeah.
told me all the time. They were saying, "Boy, you've got some big balls to do that." And but you know what? I grew up in a situation where you just were yourself, you know, and well, you know, I always liked the wrong side of the tracks. You
Right.
know, when I lived in that hotel, I couldn't go to the other side of town. It was very odd, you know, but there was a song that was popular back in the 50s about Born in the Boondocks
Right,
or
yeah.
something, you know. But that taught me a lot, and it taught me that I wanted to stay on the, you know, on
Yeah.
purpose. I always live in black neighborhoods
Yeah.
in Little Rock. You know, that's one reason why I've never even considered living in Fayetteville, because I don't know that y'all have a black neighborhood, but I actually fit better in black neighborhoods.
Kind of, sort of do, but
You kind of sort of do. Boy, what'd you import them in the last 10 years
Oh,
or so? I hadn't been up here
it's,
much, but
it's the projects, I guess, or
yeah.
it's
Well,
the poor
so
side of town. It's
it's sad, in other words. You don't know how to even describe it. Well, you know what? I'm bohemian through and through. I just like a more bohemian neighborhood. You know, I want a mix in my neighborhood. And
Yeah.
lately, Little Rock's, you know, we've always had good mixes, and I stay in the darker side of town, but on purpose, because it's more lively conversation to me, more porch sitting, you know, more leisure.
and we have working class district. We have working class areas. In
Yeah,
Fayetteville.
yeah. Well, that's
we have
good.
strong working class areas.
Yeah,
in
you wrote
Fayetteville,
a story for me about the trailer thing, I
Right,
think,
yeah.
or whatever, and that was real interesting to me
Yeah.
because I could relate to
That's
that.
hard. That's-
I've never lived in a trailer park, you know, because
those are horrible
aesthetically I'm
situations,
not
yeah.
interested in
Yeah,
trailers.
Those
but
are horrible situations where people have to live in situations
those
like
weekly
that.
rentals and
Yeah,
things. Oh
yeah.
God, that's sad story. That broke my heart. But that's the kind of stories I like to pick for the
Yeah.
Free Press too. You know, 'cause
I think
need
people go to
think about
alternative media too because they don't want to be bored.
that. Right.
And
right.
I think alternative media has stories that are interesting too.
Well, I had a lot of people said they lived their life vicariously through me and my adventures, you know, and I had some great adventures.
You had actually some pretty well-known writers. You had Michael Ventura.
Yes.
And you had actually a guy, Robert Short, who wrote The Gospel According to Peanuts.
He just died, you know.
I know he just died, yeah.
Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah.
Because he walked the streets of downtown Little Rock just like I'm doing right now, and I'd hope to join him now that I've moved back downtown Little Rock, you know.
Yeah.
I had to retreat to the country to get my book put together.
It's sort of sad that in his obituary it wasn't mentioned that he wrote for the Free Press, but he wrote for the Free Press for several years.
He loved us.
Yeah.
He liked me. He's a free thinker, and even though he went to church every Sunday, we got along just fine,
Yeah.
you know. So,
But I think people go to alternative media because they like good writing and they like interesting writing. You see what they call demise of alternative media, and it's what people a lot of people, what they call the new media, sort of sneer at newspapers, and they say, well, blogs and Twitter and Facebook are replacing it, but. I think people still like essays. I think people
They
still
do.
like writing. And
see, you're right. You do.
and somebody made the comment to me, not a comment about me, that I mistake my blog for a column. It's like I wouldn't know how to do a blog that's like a paragraph long. You know, what I mean, I do my blog is like a column. It's like a newspaper column,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And I think people relate to that. They want something to read,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think Twitter will ever replace an alternative newspaper. I don't think Facebook will ever replace
no,
a
not at
newspaper. I think
all.
people want to go online and read alternative media, you know. And
I search it out all the time online.
Yeah.
But I still love a newspaper.
Yeah.
And there are alternatives for bringing back the newspaper. And the other day I had a woman say, oh, I would feel much better about you reading your book if I checked it out from the library. And I understand that there's this whole thing against paper right now in this country, and let's grow more trees. And the paper industry needs to shift. We need
Yeah.
to be hemp paper.
Yeah.
And then I'll feel better about it too. But let's don't ban books
No.
because of the lack of paper,
And I don't wanna
which
read-
is what a lot of people, I see a lot of strange beginnings of what I consider censorship almost,
Yeah.
because books are very important.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's our last chance to tell our own story, you know. I did my whole book myself, you know. I even paid for the print job, you know.
Well, you know, more and more people now, I mean, the publishing industry's in trouble, but more and more people are self-publishing.
Right.
And doing print on demand. So more and more ordinary people are self-publishing their stuff, and more people who are involved with alternative media. And this seems to be a real history of alternative history of a state, of alternative media. Like you have published your book, other people involved in alternative media are publishing their work. So you get a real alternative history. Because you can go to the public library.
Right.
But the only thing you'll find on microfilm if you research an area is the daily newspaper.
Right.
Go to the university library and you'll find the alternative media. Now you bound copies of the Free Press.
I did.
And
Every
you're
year
giving-
I'd take them to the bindery, and I got 5 copies. So I will be donating a set to the Butler Center in Little Rock soon.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to put it there before my book came out because it's got
Right.
my columns in it.
Right.
But you know, you can read it that way. But you know, the history of newspapers, I've come up with a couple of ideas to revive
Right.
newspapers. One of them, I believe that cult of personality
Yeah.
could actually work in your favor. Like if I brought the Free Press back tomorrow, you know, a big
Which
chunk
there
of
would
my
be
money.
many people would like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Very many. In fact, I've had advertisers call me all week donating money, saying,
Yeah.
"Money's, you've got my ads.
Yeah.
Please come back." But the deal is that I paid most of my writers when I could, you know, and but the deal is let you be creative enough to figure out something to sell.
Yeah.
And build up your own following in my paper, you know, like you did, because you had books.
Right.
And, you know, you always put a little blurb about your book
Yeah.
at the end of your column.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's one way to approach the problem we got, because people still want to read the good writing that
Right.
I had. And you were clever enough, I'm clever enough, a lot of my people were clever enough to create things to sell besides writing, because it's hard to make a living writing, you know. And also, if you're a young writer, you got to build up a little history too, you
Yes.
know, like I did with this. But that's one way I think that, you know, an alternative paper could survive, by having no editorial budget and just saying, hey, you know, I want your stuff, but you're going to have to figure, you can use me for advertising, you
Right.
know. And then another way that I just read an in-depth story about was the whole idea of endowments.
Yeah.
And I think that is an excellent idea. Colleges run on endowments. A lot of things do. Southern Poverty Law, you know. Why can't the Free Press run on
Exactly.
endowments? You know, if you really want freedom, there was a lot of people who read my paper with money.
Yeah.
You know, why don't they just say, okay, when I die, she gets that 100,000, or that Free Press Foundation gets
Or
that
why,
100.
why wait for them to die?
Yeah, why wait for them to die? But you know, that's where a lot of, like
Because otherwise you'd be hovering outside the emergency room.
hell, I could be that, what is that, one of those nurses that pulls the plug or something. It's like, no. Unscrupulous.
Yeah.
But
A real ambulance chaser, yeah.
but still, I think that is something to talk about.
Or any alternative media. I mean, this is
Right,
I think
right.
this is how alternative media is
So
going to have
people
to
need to be
survive. Yeah.
thinking. And nobody. I mean, you know who gave me donations? You're going to laugh when I tell you this. It's in my book. Jennings Osborne.
Really?
He understood the
Wow.
value
The
of having an
the
alt.
Christmas light guy.
The Christmas light guy.
Wow.
He was buying Huckabee expensive suits and Janet nice jewelry so that they didn't embarrass us when they were running the state. But at the same time he was doing that, he was sending me a check here and there that would cover my printing. And I think if more people like him, and you know, it wasn't even that he liked the Free Press, but he understood the value of a diverse market.
And the thing is that still many people don't have access to a computer.
Right. Yes.
And this is the thing about people, especially people who talk about the new media. They talk about people having access to Blackberries or God reading things on their cell phone. You know, it's like people watch Lawrence of Arabia on their cell phone. It's like, man, no, these people need to be. Hope to God they're sterile. You know, but it's
Well,
like,
they probably are because
they
of all
probably
those
are.
rays.
Right? But
the TV.
It's like people still like to hold something in their hand.
Yeah.
People still like, and you know what?
Newspapers
And
aren't
I'll
going
tell
away.
You know what else is dying with newspapers?
What?
Political cartooning.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely
and
right.
crossword puzzles.
Oh, wow.
Crossword puzzles and political cartooning are going to.
I'll have to make sure I put those in the Free Press when I come back.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, now endowments is one thing, but I have another thing. And I actually drew up a proposal and thought I'd go to the Economic Development Commission of Arkansas and present this. And it's a fascinating idea, and the future is this, okay? I'll go ahead and spill the beans because I don't have time to deal with it. But green media centers. And what I was going to call, why I call them green media centers, I was going to insist on hemp paper being involved. And you have these Kinkos, FedExes all over cities. Okay, why not have a machine in the corner that's loaded with hemp paper?
That sounds good.
And every media in the city can be on it. You don't have to pick and choose. You can have the smallest of zines on there. I can go in there and pick your zine and pay $3, print it out, and have a fair audit.
Right.
So for advertising dollars, you'd have a fair audit, because I know a lot of these people stretch their audits, you know, and charge more than they should. But it's kind of an interesting idea, because there's plenty, like Photo Bucket, if you know what I'm talking about. You just, you finish your zine, you put it in that bucket, and you maybe pay $50 to upload it or something to this Green Media Center mega machine. Wow. It's an interesting idea, but I thought it out all the way through. And I tell you why it hit me. And because, for one thing, if media is worth reading, it's worth paying for. Okay?
Yes.
$3, nothing, right? If you wanted to read the Free Press, you'd pay $3.
Absolutely.
It's just the distribution's a pain in the ass. Because my friend in San Francisco that has the newspaper, he discovered that the people delivering his newspaper were also going back a couple of days later and picking it up and recycling it, because paper was so expensive then. So you've got several problems that this Green Media Center would eliminate.
I think the whole. See, that's the whole future of alternative
media. It is the future. It is the future, but it is also something you can hold in your hands and take to the bathroom with you, or take to the vinos when you drink a beer, or whatever.
You know what? And that's what people underestimate, is this whole thing about reading on the toilet.
That's
and
right.
I'm not talking about your book, but
I'm
the whole
totally reading.
concept is reading on the toilet or reading at a restaurant table.
Right. And that's why newspapers will survive.
Reading on the bus.
That's right. I do that too.
People love alternative papers, not only because there's good stuff in a read, but it's handy, and there's always something to make you go, wow, I never thought of that.
Yep.
You know?
That's true.
Well, I'm hoping that when people watch this show today, they'll go, wow, I never thought of that. Well, we see our director is pounding on the door right now, because he's saying, wow, I never thought the hour would go so fast.
Have we been talking an hour?
Almost an hour.
Oh,
and,
wow. I knew my life so well, I shouldn't have stressed.
He's pounding on the glass so hard, the glass is going to break. So, Dotty, I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
All right.
I really appreciate you being interested.
All right, and thank you all for watching, and support alternative media, wherever you find it, except the crap stuff.
Well, that was so...
Hi, I'm Kathy Deck, and you're watching Fayetteville Public Access Television.
Politics in general and jobs that don't pay enough, 40-hour work weeks, books full of boring stuff, schools that should teach but kids don't learn a thing. These are a few of my least favorite things. Healthcare that won't heal and how people treat the earth, paying tolls and taxes, disbelief in self-worth, bitter cold winters that cut into spring. These are a few of my least favorite things. Religions that claim they're true, don't get me started. Standards that double and people cold-hearted. Judgment and bias when freedom don't ring. These are a few of my least favorite things. killing. When I'm depressed and sad, I add that to all of my least favorite things, and then I feel really bad. Feel like Julie Andrews or something.